Really? You better swallow before you start talking. Yeah, that doesn't sound good. That's right, you have 3 minutes to swallow. This is the first, I haven't done any Instagram or anything this time. I'll promote it after the fact. Okay, so you let me know when you're done with your sandwich, I guess, and I'll just keep talking until it. Yeah, okay, you'll have at least that. Right. What's up? How's it going, everyone? Here we are again. It's definitely a serotonin records day today, as you'll see very shortly. And it's definitely an electro-focused day. Wow, all of a sudden my mind just started floating off into the ether. I was all focused, getting ready for this today, and as soon as I hit start, whoosh, my mind just flew off. I'm going to have to refocus here. Welcome. It's 343 Labs, 343 TV, Selway Techno Saturday. I'm John Selway, obviously. And welcome to everybody in the chat. We've already got some action going on here. We've got some regulars, Enigmatic Onion, Andrew Duke, as usual. Simple Sam, he's a new, you've been around, hanging around a little bit more lately. That's great. You're becoming a regular. Thanks for coming back. William Mind Readers as well. Live Society, hey, how's it going? Hey, Stuart from Scotland. Nice. Simple Sam says he delayed his evening meal for this. Well, you could eat while you watch, I guess. No, maybe you've got to sort of hang out with others when you do that. Be social when you eat. That's always nice. So yeah, here we are at the usual time. Every day, 1 o'clock, 343 TV. This is my day. And of course, I, focus on techno and related genres today, and more often lately, because that's just where my head has been in terms of making music, is electro. And, what I'm going to do today is take some raw material and start putting it together, start arranging it. And there's actually, we're going to talk about this I have a guest today, as you can see from the title, BPMF. He'll be coming in here in a few minutes. But he and I do our Synapse project together. That opening music, as I mentioned in the chat, is one of our tracks from quite a long time ago. Actually, Enigmatic Onion asked about what that sound was, whether it was a plug-in or whether it was hardware. And it actually is a hardware synth. It's an ARP Odyssey. It's one of my favorite mono synths. The one we used for that track belonged to Jason. I believe he has since sold that, unfortunately. But I don't know. I'm thinking about getting one of the Korg recreations of the ARP Odyssey. They look, and I think they sound pretty good. So I don't know. It's got a distinctive sort of buzzy growl to it that you can get in other synths, but there's still something to that. It's interesting to think about, like, why do people fetishize these classic vintage analog synths? Since it's the character, something about, what you can copy it in a plugin, but in terms of hardware, it's a physical object that's manufactured by human hands usually, and every piece of gear has slight different imperfections and variations, and things change over time, and they all have a unique sound. So I think that's, there's something about a real vintage ARP Odyssey, or say like a Mini Moog or some other classic hardware that, if it's well taken care of, I guess they age well, right? They have like that certain something that you can hear that's palpable. So, but at the same time, I mostly produce music with plugins. I'm such an in-the-box guy. And working with Jason actually kind of breaks me out of that. When we do Synapse, we used to do it all hardware. And then, we had some digital productions, but we went a lot of years without actually making a lot of music. And we started doing it again when we relaunched the label. When we relaunched Serotonin, we got back into the studio. And Jason, his artist name is BPMF. He's a very hardware-focused, live performance-focused electronic music producer. So it made sense for us to incorporate that and combine that with my workflow. So, a couple years ago, we started making tracks again. He came up from Philly with a bunch of gear in his trunk. And, we set up a temporary studio in my apartment and just jammed out a bunch of stuff. And so that's the results of that. A couple years later, of one of those raw sessions are going to be our starting point today for starting an arrangement. And we're not going to finish, but we can kind of talk about our approach and figure out how we're going to take. I think a lot of it's going to be going through parts that were jammed live on hardware and recorded as audio, going in there and mining them for good parts and starting to figure out what we're going to use where in the arrangement and which direction we're going to go for the arrangement. And looks like Jason is ready to come in. He's given me a thumbs up. Let's everybody welcome Jason, BPMF Sostek. How's it going, Jay?
I look like a picture.
Oh, are you stuck?
I'm stuck. I'm frozen.
That's funny. Yeah, it's a funny face too. All right,
you know what? Back?
I think I might have to.
I think you got to do it because I'm
going to have to remove you and bring you back. Let's see what happens.
Because I look fine on the screen on the left.
Let's see what happens. There we go.
Hey, I'm moving. You can see my lips move.
Ladies and gentlemen, internet technology. All the things we have to take care of when we do these streams and pay attention to.
It's like a live performance.
It is. It's, I think, who said that? Did Abe say that? He feels like getting ready for his streams. Abe Duque does
like
Fridays.
It's like getting ready for a live show.
Yeah, or it's like getting ready for a gig. You have to prepare, you have to practice, you have to have all your gear set up the right way, and then you're live, and whatever happens, happens, and you have to roll with it.
Just roll with it.
If your guest's video gets stuck, well, hopefully you can fix it fast, and we did, so
Okay, here I am.
Nice. Let's check back into the chat here. Yes, William Mindreader says warm buzzy growl. We were talking about that with the ARP Odyssey that we used for that.
Yeah, I was
bass
listening
line.
to what you were saying about Karen. One of the things about the classic synths that I think the other thing, everything you said is true, and part of it. But one of the things you said you didn't say is that because they've been around for so long, like the Odyssey 1972. It becomes like a classical music. It becomes like these are the parameters. What can you do with it? And look, almost 50 years later, people are still coming up with something new because it's very well understood and very well it like removes all those other possibilities of other parameters that aren't there, and your challenge is, can you make something new out of this that's been around for 50 years? And the answer is yes. You can still make new sounds out of a 50-year-old synth.
Of course.
And that's for some old timers like me, that's actually a more interesting challenge than can you make a new sound with a new plugin. I mean, the damn thing's new. Any sound you make out of it is new. It's a little bit of a different challenge. Can you take a 50-year-old synth that thousands of people have had and made thousands of records with and make a new sound?
Right.
That's kind of focuses the mind on...
that kind of applies to certain musical genres too, no? Like, I would say electro as a genre is similar. It's a musical language, and when it's not electro. Sometimes it's hard to pin down exactly when it is, especially for pushing the boundaries, because there's so much crossover. But a lot of genres are like this.
How's this feeling?
Things change, and genre, the perception of genres change. Because if you ask what a person born 18 years ago, ask them what deep house is versus a person who was born in the 70s, they're going to give you different answers about what deep house is. So there's a perception change on genres. But I feel like the kind of electro we like is definitely pretty, it's pretty clear that when it is electro, it has to feel right.
Of the subgenres, I think it's the one that's, it's going to be difficult to put the definition into words, but as far as what goes in your ears and defining, it's got the clearest boundaries of what the rules are. And I think it's because it's come back. It's had all these revivals, and every revival kind of synthesizes what are the essential elements of it. What are the parts that we have to keep from the previous generation? Then hopefully the better tracks add something new, take it in a new direction, explore new sounds. That's all great. But what are the essential elements that make electro track has been debating, gone over many iterations now, because we're on like the 15th revival already.
It keeps getting reborn.
Count. Right. And it
keeps getting revived, but it never really went away. If you ask someone who's been a diehard proponent of electro from the beginning, or like one of our friends, like the Bass Agenda guy, Andrew, he calls out people who are jumping on the electro bandwagon, right?
Yeah,
we've been here all along.
I like to too. It never really died, and I'm talking about the revival as far as popularity and DJ spinning it and all that, and I still think that's valid, and it brings a new generation, it brings a new life, it brings a new perspective, and it also makes clear what is constant.
Sure.
What are those? What in the first couple times around, we were taking it in so many different directions. It was a very nebulous concept of what it. I think we have a much clearer idea of what is essentially electro today, and it's due to all these generations revisiting it and saying that's it. That's the thing that makes it what it is. And if we can balance that with doing something progressive at the same time, it's gonna survive forever.
Absolutely. These genres never go away. They just keep combining and recombining and regenerating. I'm going to go back to the chat real quick. There's some nice comments in here. Andrew Duke quotes. Let's see if you remember what this is from, Jason. Take your mind to another level. Electro vocal quote there. I'll let Andrew answer.
And there was and then it followed with, what was the rest of the line?
Feel the power of the.
You see, I'm the
It's
I'm
so
the synth,
nerdy.
I'm the synth guy, so the lyrics brought the synth back.
All right. Let's see if someone out there in the chat who's a total Electro fan, see if anyone knows what that quote is from. Jan Frau says, or Jan Frau says, house is a feeling, trance is a state of mind, and E. Schaefer 525 says, and Electro is the future.
Always is in the future.
And Live Society says, techno is. All right, you guys.
Got some existentialists up in the chat room.
Yeah, that's fun. I like what the side conversations that go on in the chat while we have our kind of talk. You know, it makes it really interesting for everybody just to bounce these ideas around in real time. Let's talk a little bit about our situation that we have. Unfortunate situation where it's sort of, prompted the decision to choose the project that we're going to look at shortly. And all right, so I started to tell the story before Jason came in, but right, a couple years ago we did this round of studio sessions where Jason came up with his gear and we started, knocking out some new stuff, combining his workflow with my more DAW-centric workflow, and we're just jamming out, and then he tracking stuff from the external gear and combining that with stuff with plugins and so on, and then mixing and editing and everything in the box. And I've had an unfortunate incident happen with one of my computers, which made it so we lost some very important files. All the original sessions that we recorded are backed up on an external drive, but the newer iterations of these projects got lost when an SSD
Lots of
died.
editing work. Lots of editing work.
The MacBook Pro got dropped. And normally you'd think an SSD wouldn't suffer from being dropped, but maybe something cracked on the. I think it was on. It might have gotten a surge or something, but
then files were open and file system
got corrupted. The whole drive got corrupted. You cannot load the OS from that drive. I've had it tested. You can't do data extraction from it. Not like a mechanical hard drive. If the drive fails, you can still take it to a lab and they can get data off of it. Right?
Wow.
An SSD, if it's gone, it's gone. So first is like a PSA, like all of you working in the box or recording your external gear to digital audio files, multiple copies of everything. Like put it in Dropbox, put it in the cloud, more than one place. Put it on more than one physical hard drive. Make sure you do this regularly, right? We're lucky that I had some backup of the original stuff. So on the other side of this, we had some like sort of polished demo versions of a lot of these tracks, and it's my habit to like bounce it for testing out, to like play in a DJ set or to play for other people or put it on SoundCloud. I'll like do some sort of demo mastering, compress and limit and EQ the master. So we have some almost finished versions that almost could be release ready.
The mixes were good.
Yeah,
but
generally the mixes were good.
We pre-mastered them and ghetto mastered them. And
now I'd like to think that I'm good enough at it that I could call like my demo master could be good enough to release, and we have to test it out and see how it sounds. But
just imagine this was 1995. We would have released these just like this.
Well, that's another way to look at it.
It would have sounded better than we could have accomplished in 95 anyway, because the plugins that you used for your ghetto master were better than any mastering we did when we actually released the stuff. So you can always do more in mixing and mastering until you're nuts about it.
Well, we were talking on Abe's show a little bit about how do you know when you're done, and we just had it forced on us for some of these tracks. Like, there's no way to recreate them exactly how they are. If we want to, we have to start over again from the very raw stuff. And even if we try to copy what we did, it will never be the same.
So when we did tracks in the 90s, we were done because we always had to, mixing down to 2 and doing things as a live performance with 4 hands, we were always balancing whether the next version was going to be better in some ways, but lose something about the previous. And we might do like 3 or 4 takes, but at some point we were done because we couldn't improve overall.
Right.
And we weren't doing any editing. I mean, we didn't get to any even like minimal editing until the late '90s until
Pretty
we had
much.
computers powerful enough for that. So in the mid '90s, it was performance. We did a performance from
And you have
beginning
to
to
do
end.
multiple takes if you make a
Yeah.
mistake on a transition or something, because we're
And we
switching
would
patterns live and muting and unmuting things on the
and we
desk.
would release things with mistakes
Sure.
where to fix that one little mistake would mean doing the whole track again and losing something awesome about the version we put out. So, and that mentality has stayed with me to this day. You can you can still use that to inform your computer productions. You can still say, okay, well, what is essential about this track? What is the most important thing about it? And focus on that.
Right.
And then make everything perfect like everybody does. But I think it's still a very important question because there's so many things going on in the track and you get lost in the weeds. So what is, and we're going to do that right now, right, John? We're going to say, what is the most essential element about this track that we're going to arrange for them?
Sure. And yeah, I mean, in relating, I'm trying to
and I'm not even too sure what the answer to the question is, honestly.
We're just riffing, man. This is how it goes. And, conversations go in different directions and questions may get answered or may not. Speaking of, let's look back into the chat again. Andrew, I believe, yes, Drexia 1994 from the Unknown Aquazone EP. So the fourth Drexia release. And if anyone who's into electro, you probably already know about Drexia. If you don't, just go look for it right now. It's so important to the development.
All that nerd rock, just it all merges.
So many people
95
make music that sounds like Drexia. You just got to go back to Drexia.
Oh, and they were a big influence at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, within a year, you had
totally
Doppler,
and
you had Doppler
effect,
effects, right? and you had Lacar and Adult, and so many people out of Detroit were like, "Oh man, that is the sound." And then we were copying it, and we were trying to eject some elements into it, and then I was hearing records from Germany that had some of those ideas, and it was incredibly influential. You could check out Drexia.
Absolutely.
Rest in peace.
What else is going on in the chat here? Yeah, PSA, don't drop your laptop. Thanks, Sam. It wasn't me. I'm not going to call out the person who did it.
If he had more backups, it all would have been fine.
It would have been fine if I had done a backup that month, literally a year went by since I usually clone my drives, and I do it every month or so. And that one just spaced on me, that particular drive. So make it a habit. All right. Let's see. Andrew Duke is mentioning Morton. He's comparing James Stinson with Morton Subotnick in terms of how pioneering they are. And yeah, I'd say on a cultural, how many people are influenced by Morton Subotnick versus how many people are influenced by James Stinson? They're probably it's up there. It's different crowds, different scenes.
I mean, the nerd rock scene of Detroit of the 90s was influenced by Morton Subotnick. So he gets credit for all of that. You're talking about 20 years.
That's another one if you want to
before.
get some history is check out Morton Subotnick. You know what I want to do? Let's listen a little bit, since we were just talking about our situation here where we have these tracks that were kind of done but not done, and then we lost those versions.
Yeah, what does kind of done mean to you, John? Show us kind of.
And then we got to start relating this to arranging and what needed to change, what wasn't good enough, and how much of that is our perception even, because other people might hear these and go, "That's dope." They think other people might think it's done.
Do you have the finished version of this track that we were going to go back to the arrangement of?
That one was one of the farthest from being done, so I'm not even going to bother. I brought in a couple of tracks here that are were closer to being done.
Right, okay, apples and oranges comparisons are fun.
This one starts out real chill and ambient. It kind of fades in slowly. This is one of my favorite ones, actually, and thankfully one of the ones that I think that was closest to being done.
Oh, look at that waveform, though.
Yeah, no, there's no remastering this. This is already squashed.
This is the master.
I mean, all right, I'm going to zoom in. Let's look. It's still kind of dynamic. It's not super clipped, right? Just a little. There, see those two peaks right there that are right next to each other? But
I can't see. What is that? -2? -1?
What, it's probably -0.5 or something. The loudest peaks.
And it's the kick,
0.3.
of course.
-0.3. Yeah. Hopefully everybody out there hears that okay. Apollo 420 is actually asking, so what about actually arranging electro? We're getting there. I promise, we're going to do something.
John, do you think are the specific challenges to arranging electro that are different from techno or other genres?
Well, one thing I always find I have an issue with is of overcoming, depending on the track and how it comes together, is it's harder to let things go and be hypnotic and repetitive with electro. I feel like electro wants more contrast and changes. With techno, and like, you know, especially more hypnotic kind of, or darker, heavier techno, it can just repeat, and you only have to make little changes to the sounds and drop things in and out. And you can do that with electro, but then, especially if you're kind of combining electro and techno together, you can create that kind of hypnotic groove. But
electro arrangements are more song-oriented.
There's a lot more song-oriented.
Song.
There's more call and response, like having parts, answer each other. That you hear that a lot in electro tracks.
And one of the cheap tricks I'll point out right now that I employ a lot with electro arrangement is the end of the phrase 4 beats is an opportunity to switch it up, to bring it up to the next level or down. And that is something a little bit more annoying to a techno DJ, but an electro DJ is actually
changing all the
expecting
time.
it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you usually, in a lot of electro tracks, and again, it sort of depends on which stylistic direction you're going in, because there are different flavors. But I would say a lot of times, especially the more kind of dance floor focused, funk influenced electro, has faster changes, and it's less dense, less layered, and more parts following each other rather than being on top of each other.
It's interesting that we're saying all this over this particular track, which is kind of on the more
technique, kind of hypnotic side,
hypnotic side of what we do. But there's also the DJing style that informs it. Most of the best electro DJs cut a lot, really fast, back and forth, are really only using 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes of any track, and even there would like to have a busy track that has lots of changes. The electro mix experience is got a lot more things going on in a more condensed time. So that just ramps up that responsibility for the producer to keep bringing in new ideas and keep switching things up. That's what makes, for me as a producer, electro more fun at times than techno, unless I'm in a techno mood. And
this track, you're right. Like the arrangement of this one. I mean, we don't have the parts, and it's hard to tell just completely.
We took our time,
look at the waveform. There's like kind of an intro, and then you can see right there. There's a couple of
some breaks, and they change a little
couple
bit.
of small changes, around 16 bars or so, and then there's a break in the middle, and then the beat comes back, and then there's a mix-up. This is a very more techno-oriented arrangement, I would say. So this is definitely.
You got a counterexample? You can load up?
Sure. Well, let's see. All right. So some of the other tracks that we did, just as far as whether it's electro or not, it's another part of this conversation that we're having, is we were experimenting with combining kind of electro and breaks together. So some of this other stuff that we are here, it's like some electro, some weird techno, some breaks, all kind of combined together. Definitely a lot of funk though.
I think that
trying to have that in there.
That's the main thing that of our sound that makes us borderline electro and not always electro, is that we're just looking for the funk of the sound, and we're also techno heads. So for me, the best stuff is funky techno, and it could be electro, but it might just actually be kind of jazzy there with a ride.
This one's so syncopated. This one's definitely like a little electro, but not pure, and then it's also still kind of hypnotic techno. Right?
Yeah, we were in a mood in this session.
I'll be honest. I think a lot of that is me. I think I tend towards that. Let's check out another. Let's jump in a little bit. It's going to take too much time with each track.
Yeah, this one is a really trancy track.
Yeah, this one's definitely hypnotic. But if you think about, there's some underground resistance kind of trippy electro tracks that are funk and repetitive and hypnotic.
Well, I was personally inspired by a Red Planet track.
Yeah, I feel like this is us kind of feeling that a little bit. I could just imagine someone doing a funk rhythm guitar along with this,
kind of what I'm trying to channel with that sound.
All right. So these are definitely kind of. I'm going to go ahead and just stop that. This track is definitely like live groove kind of jam feel. This one doesn't have as much of a set arrangement with a specific number of bars and very precise changes. How are we going to teach them
electro arrangement when we keep coming up with these trans electro tracks?
The one that we're working on is definitely, without a doubt, electro.
Let's show them. Let's do it.
I just want to check out one more.
Okay.
A little more breaky kind of one here. Kind of acid. There's a 303 in here, right? Definitely breaks. All right.
Yeah,
I haven't heard this one in a while. This is totally like breaks, IDM.
In and out.
Yeah. In a way, it's cool that we're talking about this stuff. I think like, a lot of people who watch the stream are learning about production and getting into it, and sometimes this might be new to people, like what we're talking about. So it can also be good to say, what I was saying earlier about knowing when something is electro or when it isn't. These are like borderline, right? I wouldn't call this an electro track.
Almost everything we're working on is borderline. And I think you and I probably have only made a handful of
true electro tracks.
Yeah.
Like the intro music, the Synapse Freak.
Yeah. And even that is a particular subgenre of bass that is, and even the pure electro has genres inside of it. But
definitely.
But our idea behind the revival was regeneration, was like to take this influence and take it into the 90s and do something that hadn't been done yet, and influence and kind of help redefine what it is. And that's what I think every revival's responsibility is. And here we are 20 years after that, 20 some years after that. And that's our responsibility as leaders in the subgenres, to keep pushing the envelope and get the backlash of, no, that's not electro. Fine. Okay. But it's cool.
I think that it goes for any genre. There's going to be a set of people that are really purist about it. They're going to have a narrower definition of a genre than others.
And after all these years, they got a pile of records that they could spin forever, literally.
Sure.
They could just spin non-stop set of pure electro, and I would enjoy probably 2 or 3 hours of it. They would keep going.
I'm into it. When it's good, it's good. All right. So I'll just acknowledge the chat a little bit again here. I also want to remind everyone, you're watching 343 TV. I'm John Selway. This is my usual Techno Saturdays, although I think I'm going to start calling it Electro Saturdays now, even though...
For a while. But you got some guests
maybe I'll
right?
cross out the Techno on the logo and just scrawl Electro on there. Next week, I'm going to cover. I'm just going to talk a little bit about my schedule coming up, because I'm starting to plan ahead a little bit better. But next week, I'm looking at. Actually, no, I'm going to leave next week. Next week's just a normal day. 2 weeks from today, I've got a very special guest, Keith Tenniswood, also known primarily as a producer as Radioactive Man. I've got him coming on. That's going to be great. So any of you out there, he's kind of like an electro don, and you definitely want to come back for that one. Also, let's see what's going on in the chat here. Andrew Duke was talking about Japanese Telecom. That's another cool project. I actually did a remix when that was on Intuit Solar. I did a remix for a Japanese Telecom record. Almost forgot about that one. That's a fun one. I'm going to have to go dig that one up and listen to it. And let's see. I'm seeing some other... Live Society says I'm hearing more breaks in techno. Definitely a lot of breaks mixed with techno. A lot of techno with syncopated beats. And then, right there, anytime you're syncopating, not having a steady kick, that opens the door to like breaks, IDM, electro fusions with
so
techno.
when you're trying to structure,
I love electro, but my favorite stuff right now is the stuff that plays with all of that. Like it's a little electro, it's a little techno, it's a little breaks, it's a little IDM, and still keeps the dance floor. I'm all about it.
John, put me in for a second.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're arranging a funky track, you still need breaks.
Sure.
Right? And what do we do in techno when we make a break? The kick comes out.
All right. Well, you're talking about breakdowns or break beats.
Yeah,
which one is it here?
Well, where does the word break beat come from?
Well, it comes from the part of the record where it's just the drums, and all the music goes
So
away, and it's the breakdown to just the drums.
You got a James Brown track,
Sure.
and he's singing, he's getting on the good foot, and then he shuts up and dances for a minute, and the funky drummer goes off. That's the break.
That's the break.
And then then people were like, I just like that part, and then we're just going to take that part and loop it and loop it. My point, my arrangement point here is any style you work in, you want your track to have dynamics. You want it to have parts. You want it to have flow. So even a break track has to have a break. What do you do for a break in a break track?
Take the beats out?
You take the beats out. Sometimes you switch to 4 on the floor for a couple bars.
Sure.
There's a lot of little tricks you can do. So if you're making electro, you can actually put a break.
Well, there's
as a
also
break.
There's plenty of electro that has a steady kick drum too. Have you noticed?
Okay, let's not start a war here.
Well,
okay?
no, there's plenty of like Detroit stuff.
Yes.
And
They
other
call it
styles
electro, I know.
of electro. Yeah. It's like the vibe and the sound design and the melody and
there are people that have a snare fixation.
There's
right?
definitely
it's about the snare.
It is possible to make electro with 4/4 kicks.
If there's a loud snare in it and it's got a funky feel and all the sounds are funky, it can be 4 on the floor and they'll call it electro if it's produced just right. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying any of these flavors that you mix with, you want to have dynamics of feel, and you need breakdowns and you need different parts to play with, and even breaks tracks could break down into an electro section, a pure funk rock section, and that's why they naturally turn into, okay, well, what's the ratio here? Is it a breaks track? Is it electro? Is it electro breaks? Whatever. It's because we're mixing up the beats to keep it interesting.
Sure. So speaking of parts, we need to get into our elements here. Before I do that, I just want to remind everybody, this week's giveaway is a 3-month subscription to Splice. There should be a link in here somewhere. You can, if you haven't already joined in, you can, and we will announce the winner by the end of the show in the chat, and also we'll give a shout out. So let's see what we have here. All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop that tweaky synth going on here. And that, I don't know, that is about as electro as you can get right there.
The beat is basic. That's the...
that beat is... All right, hold on a second. Let me stop.
It's what my buddy Robin...
Well, you remember we did
the numbers beat.
The electro funk show where we broke down some old school beats and where they came from and then sort of how to program them. That's what this is. This is like the numbers / Planet Rock, right? And what we're hearing right now, is actually a 606 drum kit going through a vocoder, right?
Right.
Stop beatboxing, man. You're throwing me off.
Because pure 606 would be having done it a million times already, but it's still got some cool fundamental sounds to it, and it's got a feel even. Although,
right. I feel like running this beat like from a 606 or an 808 drum machine through a vocoder is just meta electro somehow.
Yeah. These same basic tracks, you would have given it to the Detroit dudes in the 90s, and they would have gone a different direction with it. But they totally would have used it.
All right. So for the bass line, this is the synth that's sending the carrier into the vocoder.
Cool trick.
So it's kind of doing the bass thing, and then we also have a more droning kind of one.
So what? All we did is,
and we have some chord changes. This was, we were talking before about, because those earlier tracks, those Synapse tracks that are, our demo versions, those were more kind of, the arrangements of those were more flowing and doing long changes over time and less song oriented. This one's going to be more sort of melody and song oriented with changes and call and response and that kind of thing.
Shit, I'll probably throw in some vocals still.
Well, there is a vocoder we can play with.
I got to write some lyrics.
Well, we're not going to do the lyrics online in front of you guys.
We're not
this
doing
is
that
something
here,
that we're thinking about throwing in there.
But it's important to point out that this is a track that we approach as if it was a song. So we've even got a progression to it. We've even got
right. So there's a chord progression, and that can make for arrangement changes. And then this is a variation. This is something like you might start with this part. This is the more like typical.
Breakdown.
Yeah, this is going to be like a breakdown part. So that's like an A and a B section we can already play with. That chord progression part and then that staying on the root key with the more syncopated going with the kick drum part.
Show them some of those musical sounds.
Okay. All right, there is also another bass line to alternate with.
Alternate breakdown.
They can play together. That sound needs some effects on it. It sounds a little close.
It's like you're a DJ and you're mixing two tracks in and out.
So that's a part. We've got this kind of thin, spacey, high melody.
What did we call this? Drunken Widows?
No. Old Men of Electro. Which is like, I feel old. I like Electro.
It's gonna have a better name by the time it's done, because
we always have working titles. None of these are Drunk Widows. That was Greg's idea. Our friend Greg was hanging around for some of this, and he came
what's
up
the
with
status
that.
of
I don't know
that
where
one?
his mind was.
That's mixed down, and
That's another one kind of
more or
along
less.
the line. We did some work on it, but it wasn't as polished as the couple of things we listened to earlier. All right, so we have those are the bass elements. There's that melody. I actually just added in. I wanted some more punch to the drums, so I added I'm not totally sold on these sounds yet, but this is like another layer of drums to add into the more.
I love that. That sounds like a synth tom.
It is. It's a Vermona Lancet. Samples from a Vermona Lancet.
See?
So synthetic.
Synth drums are always.
We have there's a sub 808 kind of boom we can bring in. Hopefully that comes through over the stream. That's our,
Well, I'm wearing the good
part.
headphones. I can hear it. Yeah,
Nice.
the Jeeping part.
All right, so that's the groove, the rhythm track, and we could do an arrangement with just that. We could do like a simple broken down just
Let's show
beats
'em
for
how it's
DJ to
done.
mix, and then but also we have the stuff that Jason kind of jammed out, and actually I think one of these was Greg on the 101. We have some tweaky kind of synth parts to add on top of this. So that's kind of some filtered sound that's almost like percussion. And then we have, that's what was playing earlier. This would be a nice section right here. It's that sound, that tweaky bright sound sounds good with the sub underneath it.
Is that my Preen? Is that the FM synth?
It might be, but it's got some distortion on it, so I don't know.
No, I think it's the SEO2.
Definitely going to need some more drums on this. Sometimes, that's kind of good.
One idea I have is
More
that
snare, probably.
some of these drum sounds could use some more delay, and that'll fill up the.
Yeah, I don't want to get
pockets.
too much into effects right now, because if we start doing effects and sound design, we're never going to actually do any arranging. All right,
Well,
so those are the
just do
parts
it.
we have. I just want to go through the other parts real quick. All right, this one needs
that
some.
would make a fine break. Just that by itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like
and
a
this is just
build up. Then things start coming in. You know what I'm saying?
There's some melodic changes in here.
Got the formats going on. It's a nasty sound.
Kind of, it's just that one note. Occasionally it changes. We got to go in and mine these long parts. That's 73 bars. I don't know if we're going to use that whole 73 bars.
I think we won't. We're going to find the best parts of it and loop it.
That's the preen. That's the FM synth. That other one must be your SCO2 or something. That's really bleepy, kind of nerdy, computery sound, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
How does that sound with this?
Ooh, that's another thing we would do. Tease with it. The first beat that's in that comes out. If you want to send me these stems, I can go through them and chop them up.
That one's kind of good. That's good energy.
Literally energy.
So we got it. We got some good stuff. So
well,
I'm already thinking ahead.
These are the tracks, and we're talking about arrangement today.
Yeah. So where do we start?
As simple as possible, right?
Well, okay, but technically, like, do I just dump a bunch of clips in there? Or if you're Ableton Live specific, we don't have to look at this as if we're Ableton Live specific, we can use like session view stuff. We can make scenes ahead of time and switch between them. We can do follow actions, which is more techie. But I would say most people are arranging like this, right, on the timeline.
I think we have to see it.
Yeah. All right. So I've talked about this before in the stream, but like ways of getting started quickly. Probably the fastest way to get started arranging is subtractively, where you just put in everything and then take away from it like you're sculpting. But in this case, that doesn't work as well right away because there's these clips with long recordings with variations, and we don't know which parts are working yet. So let's just, shall we just do it linear? Just pick a place to start and then go from there left to right over the timeline?
Sure.
All right.
Sure. I think it'll be informative because it'll be like...
All right. So we're definitely not going to start with the bass boom. That's got to come in later when something drops in, right? All right.
And we always got to tease something. We always got something that tease that really sets the mood.
All right.
Yeah.
That's kind of good because it got character, but it's not taking up a lot of the mix. It's a little bit more interesting than just the drums by themselves.
I also hear it at the end now. Like this is,
Right.
I think you just made a great outro.
Well, this could be the intro and the outro.
That's a perfectly symmetrical track for you.
All right, so let's just drag those in there. 2 and... All right. So this is another thing I have to deal with now that we're moving over to the timeline. Like I've got this loop, right? Is that, okay, yeah, it's looping. I can just drag that out. But then, yeah, this whole thing, that's like however many minutes. It's 2.5 minutes of jamming around. We didn't go through and figure out which sections of these we're going to use yet. But let's just listen to it and see if it works. Maybe we don't have to change anything. We can leave longer sections of it with the tweaking that you did if it works musically.
Yeah, but we don't have 2.5 minutes, so just bounce around. Yeah. So for the sake of argument, let's pretend we're going to do that.
All right, so just notice it, just the beginning of it sounds a little more full, and then about at 9 bars, you brought the decay down on the envelope and it's tighter. And that may be a better place to start. Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, how many bars are we going to use this for anyway? 8 tops.
So
right?
I'm going to, well, we'll see.
Well, it might continue while the other things come on, but...
Now, this is good. One of the things I wanted to touch on today was how to handle working with stuff that you recorded from outside of the DAW that you were just jamming around.
So that's part of what my idea that goes into the jam is that we're going to use multiple versions of the same lick. And if I can do like a smooth transition from something that's got like a lot of release and then tighten it up, that can actually inform the structure. That could
Absolutely.
Be like,
because when you're recording yourself and you're jamming, you're making your changes to your synths along with the beat, and you're thinking, and even unconsciously, you're probably thinking about phrasing. Yeah. This is definitely another thing I've touched on before with some techno arranging, where I was just like, I'd have a beat and I would record tweaking a synth for like 5 minutes, and then that would be my arrangement because I would follow what I did tweaking the synth. And so that's what I think that's what you're saying.
You were naturally getting tired of hearing it this way.
Yeah.
And at that moment, you made it sound like that.
And anytime that kind of transition or change happens is a place where something can come in and out of your arrangement.
That was you signaling your arranger self that now is the time to drop something new in.
And I just dropped in the extra that extra kick and snare. I'm just bringing it in after 8 bars.
So we'll build it up like this, and we'll follow.
And probably something else should happen there at the same time.
sounded very remixy already. We'll do the remix first.
All right, and let's bring in. Man, my tracks are so disorganized. Hold on. All right, so we want to be on
step 1. Label everything.
Track,
we didn't have time for that.
Everything. Yeah. All right. So we want to be here. That's a big jump up in energy, isn't it?
It's all in one. That's all in one mix.
Well, yeah, because this is like, if you want to hear what that sounds like, it's just
teaching me everything.
But we're not actually hearing that. We're hearing that run through the vocoder, which the drums are going into, which is totally beefed up. So,
well, it's one sound, and it sounds like
a lot. Basically, we're hearing you hear the noisy drums. That's what's turning into the bass because the carrier from the synth is going into the vocoder right there. What happens next? I feel like we're building up in 8s, and 4s and 8s are probably good. We don't want to think in very large sections yet. We want things to be changing fairly quickly. All right. Now I'm already thinking to just start with this, so there's more of a kick from the beginning. Hey, Hiroko's here. What's up? Nice to see you in the chat.
Word up, baby!
All right, that works. Simple, right?
Keep it stupid simple.
Now what?
Some of that music. Da-da-da-da. I thought we were supposed to be freaking them out with it. Oh, I would.
That's gonna happen later.
I would break down, tease him with that shit. Yeah.
I think it's good. We're gonna bring the lead in, and then we're gonna bring that out, and then put in something new as a new section. So.
It's all sounded so dry for a Selway production.
Yeah,
because we're working on arrangements, man. We don't have time for delay and verb.
All right, right at 17, we're going to bring that lead in. It's so delicate sounding compared to the heavy bass.
Contrast.
All right, so we have the decision to make here.
It's got to fade out or go out, or I would work with some effects at that point. But since we're not going there, I take it
that's up. That's the thing. I talk about this all the time too. Like in electronic music, the composition and the sound design and synthesis and the mixing all happen simultaneously. So it's really, but it's also a workflow choice. Yeah, no, we're choosing to avoid getting caught up in the details of sound design, even though if we were actually doing a normal studio session, I'd be like, that doesn't sound good. Let's switch it or add a delay.
You just put it in the back of your mind and continue working this way.
Sure.
And get back to it, because
so I want to see
sometimes delayed decisions are the best.
I want to see if this bass part. Right. Let's see what happens if I do something to enhance the contrast of that. Just take it out for a beat. It's just that tiny little pause of a couple of drum beats coming out provides enough of a change that when the melody goes away and the new thing comes in, it seems more powerful. All right, this one's really bothering me in terms of like, it's so dry. I want it to like have some more.
See, there always comes a point where John just has to. Oh, I kind of like that toilet bowl flange thing going on.
And all right, it's just this, since it's such this sound needs more power. So I know the arranging told me, oh, the bass needs more. So that's another nice thing to think about when you're working, is that sometimes if a change doesn't work, it's not because it was a bad musical idea. It's because the expression of the sound that comes in at that moment wasn't quite right. So, I don't know if, right. Don't take too long, John.
Nobody can do it faster.
That's not true. A little more presence, a little more upper mids. We'll compress it a little bit. There we go. It just needed some weight to it. All right, so something else that hasn't been changing all this time is that, oh, you know what? Let's try this.
That's a breakdown sound.
You think that's too much? I don't know. Let's try it. All right, so that's on that same track.
That's like a cut everything, and it comes in naked. Just let it come in naked, and everything comes. You're gonna do it like that.
I think it works. And you've got your filter tweaking in there.
Gotta get tweaking. Yeah, those are the vocals. Does the beat ever change? Do we got any other drum patterns?
Well, that's another thing. Like, we didn't do fills yet. We don't have drum variations. It's just
we didn't make
loop.
them. We hadn't made them yet. Oh, okay.
So,
well, actually, that's cool. For the sake of the 5 minutes you got left, is
it already 154?
Yeah.
We could go longer. It's okay.
Well, what we need, I think we're dealing with what we got. So we're putting our head in the mind of, this is what we got.
Yeah.
And then in the back of our mind, we're like, or color coding sections saying, okay, we're going to get back to this, and we're going to do something with these drums because we're sick of this basic rhythm by this point.
Right.
And,
so, you want to put in a marker. Or...
Right. And then, but continue with the arrangement as if we were doing something different, because we've got all this music and bass lines and things to work on. And that's got to flow overall. And then go back and fill up those rhythmic change ideas that we have when we've got more time to play with.
All right. I'm going to see if it works when we go. See, that doesn't work going away. I was worried about having that go away, and it with melody coming back wasn't going to work, but no? Yes?
I like it. I like it.
All right. Maybe it's just...
after 8 bars of that, everything's got to go.
And then
it's like a naked breakdown.
I'm going to start doing some of the chord changes. That works. That makes it more interesting than the first time.
Yeah, that thing can't leave yet. So we do that twice. Now, right there, right? It's got something. And the crazy vocal thing. You could, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That actually is good. And I want to bring in the sub bass.
Yeah.
Where's that?
Man, we've been going without the bottom
all my
this time.
tracks. Yeah, no, I wanted to wait for that because that's like a big moment when all of a sudden, boom, right?
Well, then you're gonna take out the okay. You're gonna take out the vocoder drums. Take that guy out. Yeah, our version of a breakdown still has like 5 things going on. It's all about the contrast.
We have this stuff. All right. I don't know. What's that?
Oh, yeah, we didn't bring in that nerd bleep yet.
Right. Let's take a pause here because we are like almost right up at 2. We got to decide, are we going to keep pushing this forward, or are we going to
I don't know.
tone it down? Let's see what's going on in the chat. So as I called out earlier, Hiroko Yakamura is here. She's a friend of ours. She's a DJ and producer, and she's also going to be a guest of mine in an upcoming show. So calling it out right here. You better show up, Hiroko. I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. And let's see. Enigmatic Onion, lessons of the day. Arrangement always takes longer than planned. Well, I never said we were going to finish.
Oh, no, there's
today.
no way.
This is just getting started. It is possible to arrange a track in an hour, but this style of a track, maybe not. Or maybe if you're not stopping to talk to a chat and you're just
I
so
still don't
focused.
think it was possible. I think all I was trying to show was some of the thoughts that go to the decision making, that go to making a basic structure, and hopefully someday you guys will hear this finished track and you'll be like, that's nothing like what you were working on. But this is how we got there. Is what are the sounds we have? Where do they take us? When do we get sick of them? When does it have to change? That's the basics of arrangement. That's the basics of the structure.
Absolutely. So yeah, even, just going through this process is showing, it's like a little window on the possibilities of what to do.
Tell you what, save this version, and I'll come back in a couple months and we'll finish it.
Well, there's that. We could just put it on hold, and I don't know. I feel like
because they're like
it's a very inefficient way to work, like only working every couple months.
Oh no,
well, you mean I see what you're saying. Save it here and then like finish it at another time, even though we actually already finished it.
Yeah. Just fork it. Make a version of it, and we'll come back to it.
Or we'll do a remix of it. I actually have to say, some of my favorite tracks I've ever done were remixes of tracks that I did.
Yeah. Well,
I mentioned this with Abe too. Like I'll do a track and then put it away thinking, oh, it's okay. And then I'll come back to it later and then take the parts and do a new version. And then I actually finally got to the thing that, like putting yourself in a different state of mind and remixing yourself is a really great tool.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I make the remix first. Sometimes I realize while I'm arranging the tracks that I'm actually making the remix of the original, even though the original hasn't been done yet. And then I'll do the original later.
Andrew Duke is asking us if this is merely the first track on our new album together.
We'll be happy if we.
We'll be happy if we
finish an EP.
Right. No, we were talking earlier about the tracks that were almost done that are like kind of almost good enough to release. Like we could just make that an EP. Or they could be, or we could make more new, better tracks, and those could be like B-sides or extra tracks on the album.
Well, we got to get organized. I got to listen to them again and figure out what's lost and what we have.
Looks like we have a winner for the giveaway today. Congratulations, Stephen Giustini. We'll be in touch with you.
All right, Stephen.
I hope you're going to be able to make good use of your 3-month Splice subscription. And if you're, need some help about what to do with those samples that you have access to now, that's why 343 Labs is here. We are music educators. We have a school in New York, school in Berlin. We do online courses. I teach synthesis and sound design and Ableton Live courses. And, we do 343 TV as a way of reaching out and, sharing what we do and growing our community. Speaking of community, we have a Discord server, which is really ramping up. We have a lot of people coming in. We have events on Discord all the time. You can get feedback on your tracks. We have sample challenges going on. Definitely look in the links below. Check out our website. Check out our Discord server. Subscribe here. Follow here. All the stuff you're supposed to do and I'm supposed to say as a guy on YouTube. Give us a reaction. And all right, I know it was a bit of a tease for me to say we might be able to go on longer. Unfortunately, I can't. I would love to. But I got family obligations. I got to get on with my day. And I think Jason has the same. So let's just listen to this one more time. We'll give a final thought to where we are and where we're going to go with it. And then we'll call it a day. So let's listen to what we have, just this almost 2 minutes that we've laid down here. Pump it
it's
up
already a DJ tool.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. We could just keep it simple, just beats, Maybe put in some little vocal samples, chops, vocoder, that kind of thing.
I mean, the digital DJs now, they loop on push a couple buttons on their Pioneer and like.
Actually, we should just make all our tracks 1 minute for TikTok. This is definitely
We
going
already
to need
got
some kind of
two
vocal
tic-tacs right here,
elements. Yeah, it's already done. Need a little fill there, and then weird tweaky noise coming in. I kind of like that. There's like, it's so dry right now. There's no delay. There's no like fancy effects processing. But in a way, that's kind of good.
The snare never came out except for that one.
Right. We need. I already thought earlier I need a snappy snare on top of this thing. Like it doesn't punch. We want that whack.
Or a good 4-bar no snare break, but still with bottom. Yeah, you gotta take the snare at some point.
Well, I mean, adding a snare. I feel like the snare that we're using, it's just that little bit of noise. You know, it from
It
the
could be
vocoder.
the no snare.
Sure. Good. So I think we got to start here, and we talked about some approaches, and we talked about some sort of bigger issues around style and arranging.
They might have learned. They might have learned something.
Someone might have learned something. So thanks to everybody who was here today, all our regulars, and to our new people in the chat and new viewers. Thanks for being here. Please come
Love you,
back
Bay.
next time. And congratulations again to our winner. I will be back next week. A little more, I think, techno focused next time. We'll see. I haven't decided yet. This is all kind of off the cuff for me.
Just keep it funky, John.
I will definitely try to do that no matter what. All right, guys. And do you like my slick transitions now? I love this animation going on in OBS. So thanks again, guys. We'll see you next week. Adios.